And welcome to another edition of DT Live. I hope everyone is having a good weekend. Saturday morning here in the US. Index feels like it's 120 degrees outside. And of course inside with all the computer equipment here at the office, be here, an hour and a half maybe. But pre-recorded content typically takes several hours. You record for an hour or two, then you got to edit for a couple of hours, create a thumbnail after that, and then upload the video and wait for the upload. And it's many hours of sitting in a hot room with a lot of electrical equipment, right? All these monitors that just give off a ton of heat and the lights while I'm recording. Now, I could record at my house, but my house is actually even worse, which is why I have this office. You guys probably remember when I got this office about 2 years ago. I was recording in a room at my house, but it was a very small room, much smaller actually than this office. It was like a 8x8 room, and an 8x8 room with a computer tower and 3 monitors, and then the lights and camera and everything. That thing was like an oven, especially during the summer. I wouldn't even attempt to record a video in that room at my house right now. So hence the stream. So you guys that are hanging out in the stream, give me a yay or a nay on the audio, because obviously I'm not monitoring it. Yeah, it looks like we're buffering a little bit. Yeah, hopefully we're back now. All right, audio is fine. Yeah, I just sent a chat to the YouTube. Yeah, refresh if buffering. Yeah, the network dropped to 0 there for a second. Networking here can be flaky sometimes. I usually do these streams, of course. Typically, if I stream, I try to do them on a Sunday when nobody else is in any of the office suites here, just in case they're, sucking up a lot of the network. I don't know, torrenting movies or whatever, people do in their offices, right? Watching Netflix and things like that. Seems good now. Yeah, I'm looking at the speed in OBS. It looks fine now. But therefore, the first couple of minutes of the stream, yeah, it was quite bad. Yeah, about a 25-second delay between me and you guys. Yeah, that's pretty standard for YouTube. All right, I'm going to switch to my desktop here. And let me go ahead and open my browser. I'm going to navigate to my GitLab here. And I'm going to go to, well, first, let's take a look at shell color scripts, this particular repository here. So this is a program that I've been maintaining for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. It's been packaged in the AUR for a number of years. I also maintain my own build of it in the DTOS core repo. And I do have 2 merge requests here. Now, for those of you not familiar with what the shell color scripts is, it's, when I open a terminal, you get this, random color script, right, that comes up every time. That's just a collection of these terminal color scripts that, I've packaged up and given the ability to just specify which one of these you want to come up each time, or how I do it in my bash RC and my fish config is just set the command color script random, where it just randomly picks one of these. But I have these merge requests here, and let's see. One of them is from 2 months ago. I don't get to these merge requests in a timely fashion, mainly because I really don't want to maintain, a big project that's got a lot of activity. And I've got so many repos on my GitLab, and I do get a lot of issues open. I get a lot of merge requests, and sometimes some of these merge requests are things that would require a lot of work for me, because the merge requests themselves are not exactly right. I would have to go in and fix some of the intentions of the original author of that merge request. And I don't really like doing this as work, right? I like scripting and, for fun every now and then, but I don't want to go in here and fool with too much stuff. But so he's got 3 commits here. Let me zoom in here in the browser, show you what a commit on GitLab looks like. So he's got 3. So he's, one thing, he doesn't like my use of xargs base name. He says just use printf. This will be much faster on platforms like Git Bash on Windows. Okay, so shell color scripts, obviously I wrote it to use on Linux. I didn't have Windows in mind, but hey, as long as it works, still works on Linux, I don't mind if people, you know, try to tweak some of the stuff to make it work on Windows or make it work on Mac. I know a lot of people have opened issues on the shell color scripts that it doesn't work on Mac OS. Well, I don't have a Mac, and I don't plan on buying a Mac. I'm never going to test it on a Mac, so I can't make that work for you. Of course, being licensed as free and open source software, you can always fork this and make it your own. You can tweak it, make it work on the Mac OS. It can be your shell color scripts, you know, change the name or whatever, but you know, Mac shell color scripts or whatever, and go with it. It looks like he also fixed what he considers a bash error with these pipe symbols. So this is, you know, basically or, right? So run this command if it fails, or do this. Looks like somebody did or 0 or an empty string. We'll check that out. And he doesn't like my use of command. So because I'm using the ls command in the script, most people have their ls command, well, I say most, but most people probably do have their ls command aliased in their bash RC, right? So I can't just use the ls command in a script, because that ls command is going to be a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people, right? Because some people are going to use different flags with ls. Some people have ls actually aliased to a different command, like I have it alias to the exa command. Some people have it alias to the lsd command, right? So by using command, that actually specifies, don't use any alias I might have set for ls. Use the actual /bin/ls command. That's what command does. And he says it would be better not to use command, instead use which. So if I go into his commits here, we can actually look at what he's talking about. So fix 2 bash errors. So this is, he didn't like these pipe symbols here. You can see the red lines, these 2 red lines. He wants to delete these 2 green lines he is adding. Basically, he's just chopping off the 2 pipes and the empty string here, and the 2 pipes and the 0 here. Now I understand what the original author of this was trying to do. List, blacklist. So he was trying to assign a value to this variable, list, blacklist, and it needs to be a string, and the string is this command. But what happens if this command fails? Well, he was basically saying, if the string, assign it the result of this command, or assign it an empty string. The problem is he didn't format this quite correctly, because this is actually inside this entire parentheses with the $sign in front of it, so it's actually gonna fail anyway, because even if this command fails, the 2 pipes here means or run this next command. Well, that's not a command, right? That's an empty string, but it's going to try to run that as a command. So that's not going to work, and neither is the next one where he does the same thing. He needs a numeral. He's trying to assign a variable number to this variable. So it's going to be this command here, right? Run this command, run it through wc-l to get a line count. If that fails, then the line count should be 0. But again, he didn't really format that right. So he is just chopping all of that off, because that wouldn't have worked anyway. So that looks like a okay commit here. And then he wants to fix the aliases for command find. He doesn't like these 2 lines where I use command find. He's going to change them to which find. And then later I use command ls. He's going to change them to which ls. Now I don't think it really makes a difference. Both command and which are part of the core utils. Everybody's going to have them. He probably is changing that for maybe some slight performance gain. It's not going to matter on a really simple script, but this change would work. So basically what he's doing, if I open a terminal here, if I do command ls, right, that is ls, that is /bin/ls, the actual ls command. Where if I normally run ls, That's my alias for ls, which is actually the exa command, right? Well, another way to do that, instead of command ls, I could also do $, and then in parentheses, we're going to run which ls. And that failed there. I could actually just run which ls, but if I was actually going to run this as part of a longer command, I'm in the fish shell. That's why that didn't work. Let's switch over to bash. I'll clear the screen, but I could do $, which ls. So it's going to run the which command on ls. If ls exists, then it's going to actually ls and then the next argument. So ls, I don't know, ls my videos directory. Yeah, there you go. So that's how that works. And, you know, command ls would have worked the same way if I did $ command ls videos. Now, interesting enough, though, see, we get these columns, get columns here in the output for which, where we just get the values separated by a space using command ls. So actually, I may not want to accept this merge request. I may have to look deeper into this, because I think the fact that the output is different between the two commands, that's going to cause a problem when Dmenu tries to output something, right? Because Dmenu wants everything basically on its own line. Like this here, I could feed this into a bash array because it's nice and neat, where this here is not so nice and neat because of the columns, right? Yeah, I'm not going to accept that merge request, at least not right now. I would have to spend some time with this and actually do some testing, and I'm not going to do that on camera. So that might be a good merge request, but I'm going to leave it alone for now. So I'll test that maybe this evening. I'll go get me a 6-pack of beer or something and spend an hour or two playing with that and see if that works. But let's jump over, actually, let's jump over to my Dotfiles repo really quickly. There's some merge requests here, and I don't understand why people do merge requests on my Dotfiles, because these are my personal config files. Like adding themes to my Dotfiles. Why are you adding themes for my personal configs? I mean, what's the point of that? Right? They're my configs, they're not your configs. But let's see what they're doing. Yeah, they're just adding some stuff to my Alacrity config. I mean, I guess I don't mind adding it, because it's not like I have to use it. It's just some extra code he's adding to the config. I'll go ahead and accept it. Since they spent the time to actually do the merge request, let's go to the overview and approve that. And now let me open a terminal. Since this is my Dotfiles repo and I use a git bear repository, I have my Dotfiles repo using this git alias here. Config is the alias. So I'm going to config pull. And nothing was pulled in. Config status. I've got some things I should add though. Just very quickly, config commit. Yeah, minor changes, and it's not something anybody needs to know. That was just a minor key binding change to my xmonad config there. I didn't merge that. I approved it, but I didn't merge it. Now I should be able to do a config pull. Yeah. And apparently his changes didn't break anything, because this is the Alacrity terminal, and Alacrity reads its config. Even when you change the config, it does a hot reload, an instantaneous reload, and if there was an error, Alacrity would have let me know as soon as I pulled that in. So Alacrity is still working, so there was nothing wrong with that merge request. Doesn't do anything for me, but again, some people, you know, some people are not quite sure what .file repos typically are. This is just people's own personal configs. It's not really meant, like, we as a community get together and work on things and change things and all agree on one. No, this is just my workflow. And please don't change anything crazy. I get people sometimes that go and like change my key bindings in my xmonad config or qtile config. I'm talking about change all the key bindings and then do a merge request. Like I'm going to take that. Like, what are they doing? I'm assuming that's typically a mistake where they meant to fork the project, you know, but then they try to merge it back into the main project. And obviously I'm never going to accept that. I'm going to go back to the chat for a second. Yeah, McDonald's tuber. I did have some breakfast this morning. I already had my coffee, though. I had 2 cups of coffee this morning. I had the McDonald's coffee, and I made me a second cup of coffee here. I've been here for a couple hours this morning. Before the stream, yeah. Yeah, alias ls to exa for the fancy colors. And that's what I do. You guys can check out that alias on my Dotfiles repo. Just go check out my bash RC and look for the ls alias I use. Yeah, you didn't do the actual merge. Yeah, I caught that. I usually don't even bother hitting the approve button. Usually what I meant to hit was the merge button. Because it is kind of confusing because they have approve, but then you merge, but you don't have to approve anything. You just hit the merge button and it'll just go ahead. Yeah, command ls should re-refer to the alias command, right? No, it doesn't for me. It just runs ls without, you know, any flags or options, the standard ls command. I guess, you know, we could RTFM, right? So let's do a man on command. Command, run a program. Command forces the shell to execute the program command name and ignore any functions or built-ins with the same name. So it's obviously going to ignore your own custom aliases, right? Basically going to run the command as default, right? Is essentially what it's going to do there. Now let's take a look at some of these other merge requests. Update the rc.lua.original. I don't know what this is about, but let's see. Because he didn't give a message. I'm just going to have to look. He changed one word in this line. Instead of I suggest you to remap, I suggest you remap. Okay. Yes. Maybe some kind of grammatical thing that he felt the needed to go. And then this line looks exactly the same to me. Maybe there was a tab or something. I have absolutely no idea why this person made this commit. Like, it is such a pointless commit, right? Basically changed nothing, but because it's pointless, it harms nothing for me to go ahead and merge it, right? You can see this is why I go sometimes weeks or months without looking at these things, because, you know, it'll give you a headache sometimes trying to look at these things and figure out what people are doing. Again, for my Dotfiles, right? And just for my personal use. The open box config. So this is the next merge request. Let's see. This person did give me a message. Termite is obsolete and replaced by Alacrity. Nah, he's right. But I haven't used open box in years, so I haven't done anything with my config in many, many years. But it looks like all he's going to do is go in and change all the instances of Termite to Alacrity. I'm not even going to scroll and make sure all of that looked right. I'm sure all he did was a simple sed substitution, right? Substitute Alacrity for Termite in every instance of that document. That's the way I would have changed it. So it would have been like a quick 5-second change. I'm going to go ahead and merge that as well. And again, I'm just going to assume that's right. Again, I occasionally log into OpenBox, you know, a couple of times a year. I'll log into OpenBox and live in it for an hour or two just to remind myself how cool it is. Maybe sometime here in the next couple months, I'll log in and verify that config actually does work. Let's see. No more merge requests for the dot files. Do I really want to look at the issues? I probably don't. Yeah, some of these are quite old. Alacrity italic font. Let's see, the section under font named italic and bold italic are not recognized by Alacrity. I guess they changed some syntax to the Alacrity config. Well, if they're not recognized, I mean, it's not an issue unless it causes an error message. I'll deal with that when I have to, not before. So, just for being lazy. Fish user paths. So my fish config, according to fish documentation, fish user paths is prepended to the path, so no need to add fish user paths to itself. Okay. This could have been an issue earlier, I'm not sure, because fish does see some pretty good development, frequent development. Fish has changed a lot here in the last 3 or 4 years since I've been using it. For one thing, Fish has gotten a lot better at executing like your standard kind of POSIX commands, sometimes at the command line. Some of them will work, some of them won't. That was my Dotfiles repo. Let's see, let's go back to my home page here. The repo I really wanted to spend some time on, though, dmscripts. This is of course, the Dmenu scripts, which I've got about 29 scripts here listed. That's part of the dmscripts package. You can install dmscripts. Also, it's packaged for the AUR. It's also packaged in my DTOS core repo. I also maintain my own build of it for that project. So dmscripts. Let's take a look at some of the ones that, well, actually, let's just quickly take a look at all of them, really. So if I do super PH here in my configs, and this is the same on DTOS, those of you running DTOS, super P followed by H, super P for prompt, H for hub, DM hub is the name of this program. It's the hub because it lists all the other DM scripts. The first one, DM bookman. So this is your bookmark manager. And what it does, you can see I've got a description. Search your Qt browser bookmarks and quick marks, but that's deceptive. It's not just for Qt browser. It does search your Qt browser bookmarks and quick marks. Well, let me actually run that. So these are bookmarks, and well, these are the quick marks in Qt browser. If I scroll down, I'll eventually get to the bookmarks in Qt browser. But it will also list your Brave history. It will also list your Firefox history, your Brave bookmarks, your Firefox bookmarks, and I believe Chromium as well. Now, I don't have all of that set up on this computer. I do have it set up on my computer at home. If I run this command on my personal machine at home, it actually does list all of my bookmarks in Brave and Firefox. It doesn't do this on this computer. I do record on this computer, and you guys don't need to see my browser history, right? So let me actually open Emacs and let's go ahead and take a look. Well, I've got this, it's part of my recent files here. I took a look at it. So this is the bookmark manager. So dm-bookman. If you guys want to see the code here, all the DM scripts follow the same basic template. Basically, you have the shebang and then the description. You need to follow this particular style guide for the description, because some of this information is grepped out later to actually be part of the DM hub. That's where it pulls the name and the description from. It's because every one of the DM scripts should have this line here, description, colon, space, and then the description. And then after that, you have this section here that's in every single DM script, set-euo pipefill, and that is for some debugging purposes. And then if dm helper.sh exists, so if you have the dm helper file, we're going to source it. And if you don't, then don't, obviously. And then we're also going to source this command here, git config. Git config searches to see if you have in your home directory /.config/dmscripts a file called config, and you should have that file. If I open PCManFM here and I navigate to .config, and there is a dmscripts folder in here, And there is the config file. Now I could open the config file. Just open it in Emacs. That is the dmscripts config. It's a very lengthy config. All it is, for the most part, there's a lot of bash arrays in here. And what this does, it means that, like this particular script here, DM radio lists a lot of radio stations that I've added, right? But you might not like the same radio stations. You know, you may want to go add your own links to various radio stations to play. So there is the array for that, right? It's not hard coded in the DM radio script itself. No, you have this gigantic config where you have configuration options for all of the DM scripts. So you can edit that radio list or edit the web search engines that you can search with this particular script here. You know, listed, I don't know, 30 or so search engines that we could search various things for. You could go in and add or remove things, you know, from your personal config. This config, this global config that, you know, or our personal config, it's also a global config that'll exist in /etc/dmscripts. This was very important because otherwise we would have had to have hard coded all of this stuff in each individual script, and then people would be going and trying to edit the script unnecessarily. Well, not unnecessarily, but they shouldn't have to ever go and edit the actual script itself, right? Anything that actually needs to be edited for personal use, you know, it needs a config file, right? I mean, that's why /home, you know, / your username /.config exists, right? Because every program, you know, if you can change a program, you can set preferences and settings and things, it needs to have some kind of configuration file. Let me go back to the chat and catch up on some of the chat here. Are you going to do some live coding? We may. Matter of fact, I would expect we may do some of that here in a minute. Not going to do a ton of it. Don't want to bore people, especially if it involves something that's a lot of trial and error. But we're definitely going to, at the very least, I'll talk you through some stuff. You know, when I spot things that don't work or things that could be better. Kind of like when we were going through the merge request a minute ago, when the guy that wanted to change command ls to which ls, you know, I'll explain exactly why he was doing that and, you know, the differences between the two. So yeah, we'll cover some stuff. It'll be educational, I promise. Hey DT, have you ever tried Taffy bar as an alternative to Xmo bar for Xmonad? Yeah, it's horrible. It's clunky. And it's not good. Yeah, it's been around forever. Yeah, of course, I've tried it. Yeah, it's just not a good bar. Are you still on BSPWM? No, I'm on Xmonad today. I did live in BSPWM, though, there for a couple of months recently. Just to remind myself that BSPWM existed, and it's not bad. I like it. I think what I'm going to do, I'm obviously using Xmonad every day right now. I think soon I may go back and try to live in Qtile for a while, like for a couple of months, because I need to spend some time on my Qtile config. There's some things in it that I don't quite like. Things in it that made sense a year ago or 2 years ago, but not quite working right now. Qtile is another program that sees a lot of active development. Things change. They're always adding things, improving things. So it'd be good for me to go back and live in Qtile for a while, mainly just to tweak that config file a little bit. I think you're in denial about being a developer, DT. No. Don't enjoy it. I really don't. Qtile is just the best. I agree. All right. Go back to dmscripts here. So that's the config file that you won't have in your home directory when you install dmscripts. You have to add this yourself. So what you would have to do, I mentioned, you get a global config in /etc/dmscripts. Is it config? Let's just cd into it, and yeah, there is config file there. Okay. So when you install dmscripts, /etc/dmscripts/config exists, all you would need to do is do a copy of /etc dmscripts config and move that over into your home directory .config/dmscript/config. And that's explained in the documentation for dmscripts. So copy the default config over to your home directory, and from there you can edit it. For example, most of the scripts, well, many of the scripts involve a browser. What browser do you want to use? Well, I set the browser variable dm browser to Brave because that's what I'm using right now. You could set it to Qt browser. You could set it to Firefox, LibreWolf, whatever, right? Same thing with dm term. Anytime any of the scripts opens a terminal, needs to open a terminal, I want it to run Alacrity. But you could use something like ST as an example here that I gave, or whatever terminal emulator. Same thing with editors, text editors. You could, of course, set dm editor to Vim, right? It actually needs to be open in a terminal. So you would set dm editor equals dm term, whatever you have the terminal emulator set to, and then space Vim. But I'm setting my dm editor, of course, to the Emacs client. And there's several other things you could set as well. You do have some settings for dmenu, fmenu, which is actually FCF, and rmenu, which is Rofi. Because remember, about a couple of months ago, I did a major rewrite of dmscripts to no longer require it to use dmenu. I mean, it's nice. I like using dmenu, but some people like using Rofi. And I was getting a lot of questions about how do I make dmenu or dmscripts work with Rofi? Well, all you had to do was come in here, find the dmenu variable, and change it to Rofi. But instead of doing that, what I've done now is I have these variables for dmenu, FZF, and Rofi, and I've added flags to all of the dmscripts. Every dmscript has a -D flag, a -F flag, and a -R flag, depending on whether you want to run it in dmenu, FZF, or Rofi. For example, that dmhub script that I just ran, by default, it runs it in dmenu. If I specify dmenu, of course, it'll run it in dmenu. If I do -R for Rofi, it'll run it in Rofi. And if I do -F for FZF, it'll run that script using FZF. And that works with almost every script. Every script has those three flags. With a couple of the scripts, FZF is an issue because FZF is a command line program, and it handles things that handles input a little bit differently than dmenu and Rofi. But dmenu and Rofi work perfectly on all the scripts. That was the config file. Let's go back to this example script. So yeah, you had the shebang, the description, we're sourcing some helper files and a config file. And then really, you have a main function at some point. Now this bookmarks script is very lengthy because it's quite complicated, because it's sourcing information for several different browsers. It's sourcing information from a MySQL database because one of the browsers uses like a SQLite database. But at some point, you have a main function. That's what we require for the dm scripts. You have the description, at the top, you source all the information from the config file, you create a main function, and then at the end, you need to have at least these 4 flags. And really, all you should have is these 4 flags. The D flag to run it in dmenu, the F flag to run it with FZF, the R flag to run it with Rofi, and the H flag just runs a help function. And the help function is a global function that's actually hard-coded actually in the dmscripts global config file. The help function, so let's do dmhub-h, all it does is give you the information about the flags that you could use, as well as it grips out that information, the description and the dependency information from the top of the file. You had this line here for dependencies and this line here for description. So that is how the help flag works. But the bookmarks program looks like it works okay. DM color pick. So copy a color to your clipboard. Now this is one of the scripts that was contributed by someone else. When I first started this project, someone quickly spun up this script and added it. So if I hit enter on this, we have 8 options, right? 8, 9 options, I don't know, your standard colors when you're doing your like your X resources color scheme or whatever. The problem is these are hard coded. These are actually hard coded in the dmscripts config file. If I scroll down, I guess this was the color scheme that this person was using at the time, or maybe I was using at the time. So that is the hard coded list for that. Now, I don't really find this very useful, right? I guess if you never changed color schemes and you always use the same color scheme and you knew what each of these values were and you needed a quick way to copy them. For example, if I hit blue here, it copied that to the clipboard. So if I open a terminal, do a paste, it actually pastes that color into the terminal there, the hex value for it, right? Because that was set right here. But yeah, that script, I'm going to leave it because it works, but it's such a simple script. You know, I don't know if anybody really finds that useful, right? So let's go into dmscripts/scripts. I'm not in the right directory here. Let me get into my GitLab repos. If I can type. Oh, I am struggling here. It's because I have the slash, and I'm wondering why my tab complete is not working. Because I'm not in my home directory. There we go. And it's a lengthy path. There we go. All right. So this is all the scripts in my dmscripts repo. And let's take a look at dm call pick, color pick. You can see it's a very simple script because this should be at the top of every single DM script, right? It's just part of the template. You know, the only thing that'll be different will be the dependency and description and the name and the contributors, you know, whoever wrote it. The original author was Sloopy, so that was the person that originally did this. But the rest of this is just standard. And then I already mentioned you should always have this down here with these flags to run basically always the same command, you know. So really, the only thing that this script is doing that's, as far as an original, that's not, you know, part of a basic template to work from, is this main function, right? And that's how easy these scripts are to write. You know, I know sometimes bash scripting, it can look complicated, but especially if you already have something to work off of, because we've already standardized this as part of the dmscripts project. We really worked hard on making sure everybody did things the same way, just for consistency. All you got to do is create a main function. His main function is basically giving a list of those color values, typing that into Dmenu. And where does it get the array? Well, it gets it from the config file that we sourced. And then he pipes that into cp2cb, which is a copy to clipboard command line program. And that's it. Really, really simple script. Again, it's such a simple script, I'm not sure if it's that useful, but I'm going to leave it since it works. I do space ph for the dm hub again. The next one, dm conf edit. So this is dm configuration file edit. Basically, it's a list of common configuration files that I edit. And that's why I have this default array that's part of the dmscripts config. For example, if I want to edit, I don't know, my fish config, you know, I can just hit enter and it launches with whatever editor I specified in my dmscripts config, which is the Emacs client, my config.fish file. So I actually do use this occasionally, this dm conf edit. I don't have a key binding for it though, but this works. There's nothing wrong with this. I really don't need to do anything. I will say that I probably could add more configuration files to this default array that's in the config. So why don't we do that? If I go up a directory here and go to the config, and let's see, I'm going to scroll down. Where are the configuration files? Conf edit underscore list. So this is this array that I've got in the default dmscripts config. I noticed Let's see. Well, not all of these show up in the list now that I'm looking at it. So that could be an error, because I see various Doom Emacs things. I don't see, for example, I had XMobar monitor 1, monitor 2, monitor 3. I don't actually see that in the list. I wonder why. Maybe because those configuration files don't exist. Let's see if that's the case. I'm going to actually navigate back to .config/ let's xmobar, and then xmobar rc 0 does not exist, 1 does not exist, 2. Okay, so these were the names of these xmobar rc configurations that I was using probably in years past. I've since renamed them, so it actually will not find these. So, and honestly, most people are not going to have 3 monitors anyway, so this was mainly just for me. It probably doesn't need to be part of the global config, so I probably should just delete these. Yeah, I think I will, because that's such a just me kind of problem. I'll delete that. Nobody's going to need those anymore. Other configs that I should add. I added the vim config, right? So home/.vimrc, just standard vim. But these days, most vim users are probably using NeoVim. Do I have NeoVim? I do. But it is not in the list. NeoVim. It is not in the list. Why is that not in the list? Well, let's get back into .config. NeoVim. I bet I renamed the NVim. Yeah. init. Because I'm using an init.lua. I forgot. I rewrote that to init.lua. And many people will, but not everybody. So actually, let's create 2 entries for NeoVim here in this array. NeoVim init.vim. And then NeoVim init.lua. Just to cover everyone. And of course, I'm not going to see that in action right now because I'm still sourcing my old config. Right, I actually changed this in the dmscripts repo that's locally on my machine. I'm going to push all these changes here later. And that's a good change to make. I've got one script I know that's going to require some minor changes, and I got one script that I know is going to require like some major rewrites. I want to save time for that. Get back to the chat here. Let's see, why not source hut? I don't know. Why source hut? I don't know. I get a lot of weird why not questions. Like, no. Like people is like, hey, you're on Arco Linux. Why not Arch Linux? I don't know. Why Arch Linux? Like, yeah, I don't even know what the question's about, right? Like if you're asking me why I use something or why I don't use something, at least give me a clue as to what you're actually after. Just strange questions. Like, hey, why don't you use Vim? You know, obviously you guys see me Emacs. Okay, why should I use Vim, right? Like, give me more, right? Otherwise, it's just, it's almost a pointless question. Hey DT, do you know any good LSP plugins for Emacs? I haven't got into that. Again, I'm not a developer. I'm not a developer by trade, obviously. I'm not even a hobbyist developer, right? Again, I don't do this stuff that much. I don't enjoy it, right? It's stuff, you know, every now and then I get in the mood where I want to do some scripting, do some programming. for a few hours over a couple of days, and then I won't touch that stuff for the next 2 or 3 months. And then I'll do it, and then I'll get the urge again, but no. But eventually we'll get into some of that on video. Joe Panico, how you doing, buddy? Long time no see. Yeah. ADT, if you're not a developer or anything, how or where did you learn all that stuff you know? Because I'm trying to learn something in order to customize my stuff, but I don't know where to start. I've just been using computers a long time, right? Been using Linux a long time. I've used Linux a long time, especially in the earlier days of Linux. Like I was, using some Linux servers for web server development, things like that, web stuff. Back in the late 90s, in the very early days of the web. Even then, building websites and stuff, you were putting that stuff typically on Linux servers. You were having to remote into those machines, SSH into those machines to do your stuff, install things, edit config files, things like that. So obviously, without a GUI, because you're remoting into servers, you have to learn some basic command line stuff, right? And then, as I got into Linux on the desktop, some years later, I've been using Linux primarily on my desktop systems now for about 15 years. I've learned even more stuff. It's just one of those things, you acquire this knowledge over time. It's not like, a week from now, you're just going to know everything about Linux. No, you're never going to learn everything about Linux. And Linux, when people say Linux, they're not talking necessarily about Linux, the kernel, obviously. They're usually not talking about Linux necessarily, the operating system. They're talking about Linux, the operating system, and all the supporting technologies that are typically used on a GNU/Linux operating system. It's a vast world. When people say Linux, they're talking about so many different things. You're never going to know it all. It's impossible. I certainly don't know it all. Not even a fraction. Small fraction. Let's see, yeah. So, HostGrady, SourceHut, it's really good. More privacy friendly. Well, yeah. That may be an issue for some people. For me, I'm on YouTube, right? Everybody knows who I am. But I certainly understand the privacy issue if folks want to go that route. And unfortunately, I can't be private. I wish I could. But that ship has sailed. Even if I just quit YouTube and deleted my channel, my stuff will be out there forever. There's people that have videos archived. They're already on a bunch of other free platforms. And 20 years from now, I'll be walking down the street and, people will recognize me from these videos. That's the way it is. Ben Fitzpatrick, he says, I'm not a dev at heart. I like to tinker, but I don't have the heart of a developer. Neither do I, Ben. I'm struggling to maintain Storm OS on my own, and hence I might retire the ISO. I don't know. Well, I can understand. Trust me. When I mention I'm not a developer, same thing. I'm not a developer at heart. It's not something I enjoy. And part of the problem with free and open source software, those that were here at the beginning of the stream, I had some merge requests. Some of those merge requests were good merge requests. Some of them are almost a waste of my time to look at. And that's part of the problem I have. I get frustrated. I don't have a lot of time. I don't like looking at this stuff when I start looking at it. And then I've got people wasting my time. Like the Dotfiles repo, especially on my GitLab. I get some crazy merge requests that I would never accept on that stuff because it's just completely inappropriate for people to go in and change my personal configuration files to what they like and then try to merge it back in. It's like, why am I even sitting here reading your merge requests? Or I get merge requests that completely break programs, which I had one actually on dmscripts the other day, about 3 days ago. I pulled in something that broke things. Let's go ahead and correct that now. I have a pretty good idea how to correct that. Let's close that split. So, super PL, no, not super PL, super PQ for quit. On DTOS and my personal configs here on my machine, on my Dotfiles for Qtile, for Xmonad, super PQ for quit is the dm logout script. Lock screen, logout, reboot, shutdown, suspend, quit. Well, the other day, Joshua Lee gave a merge request because he wanted to change a perfectly working command. There was nothing wrong with the way I was logging out of the window manager, but he wanted to change it to use the login CTL command, one of the login CTL commands, because it was, I guess, more standard, which is fine, as long as it works. The problem is, I accepted his merge request. I just assumed he knew it would work, but let's go to the dm logout program. And let's see the command he changed. Where am I at? Oh, this one here. Login CTL terminate user does not seem to work for me. What it does, at least on Xmonad, and I've also tried this on Qtile, so I'm assuming it probably would do this on all of my window managers. When I do the dm logout script, so super PQ, and I hit logout, I'm not going to do it because it will kill this recording. What it's going to do is it's going to kill the window manager. It actually kills everything. Window manager, Xmobar, Conky, but it doesn't actually kick me back out to my login manager, SDDM. It just kills the window manager. I have a wallpaper still up, but nothing else. I then have to drop to a TTY to actually kill the window manager so I can get back to SDDM. So I don't know why this command is not working for me, because I'm assuming it works for him. Surely Joshua, he wouldn't have added this if it wasn't working on his system. He uses Gen 2. He probably doesn't use Xmonad as a window manager or Qtile. I don't know. But I did find an alternative. Instead of terminate user, I could kill user. That also doesn't work. Terminate user didn't work. But I found that UID, the user ID, I don't know why, because it should be able to take either the name or the ID, these commands. But if I do kill user and then my ID for my user, which is 1000 on my computer, it could be a different number, but you can always just do $UID. If I hit enter on this command, it actually kills the window manager properly, right? It actually drops me back into a login manager. So I think that's what I'm going to do for that. So let's actually verify that before I do that, though. Let's go to a different workspace, because I can't actually do it on camera because I'd kill the recording. Let me open a virtual machine just to test this out. Something Arch Linux based. Manjaro XFCE sounds like a good one. Let's log into this. And hopefully I've already installed something like Qtile or Xmonad on this virtual machine, because these Manjaro virtual machines, I use them a lot to test DTOS. So I may actually be able to test this on Xmonad. No, it doesn't look like I've run the DTOS script on this. But that's fine. Don't show this message again. Close that out. Let's change the display. Keep this configuration. So I must have never used this virtual machine if I've never saved the screen resolution. This must be a VM I haven't done anything with. All right, so the command Josh wanted to use was login CTL terminate dash user $user, which works here, at least on XFCE. Wonder why it wasn't working for me on Xmonad and Qtile. And login CTL kill dash user also works on XFCE, so either one of those would have worked. Yeah, this VM is horribly out of date, yeah, but I'm not planning on updating this VM. I'm just here just to run the command in a terminal. Login CTL. The one I was thinking about changing to was kill user UID, user ID, because this seemed to work with my window managers. And it also works with XFCE. I think that's what I'm going to change it to. If it causes some issues in some other desktop environments or window managers, we may have to change it. But I think what I'm going to do, login CTL kill user, and then instead of user, the user variable, which is the name itself, so it would be like login CTL kill user DT. I'm going to do login CTL kill user UID, which is my user ID, which in my case is 1000, but it could be different for your user. So I think that will solve the problem for that script. Now, the next script that I want to take a look at, one I know had some serious issues, and part of the reason is it was a script that someone else added. They wrote originally. This is the DM music script, which is a neat script. That's not it. That's the man pages script. DM music, play music using MPD and MPC. Let me hit enter on that. Now, by default, if you install DM scripts, DM music is not going to do anything because, again, it needs MPD and MPC to be loaded, right? So I have the music player daemon on my system, MPD, but I don't have it running. I typically don't use MPD, but I do have it installed and configured. If I launch it, MPD, the music player daemon, now is running. MPC, I could actually toggle MPC with MPC space -T. Well, I thought I could. Maybe that's not a legit command. All right, MPC no other arguments should turn it on though. Or not. Oh, it's paused. So -T for toggle does work, but you first have to start MPC. Maybe that's not -toggle maybe? What is the command? Start? Unknown command. I never use MPC. I could actually look at his script. I bet he uses the command. MPC toggle without a dash. There we go. Let me turn that off because it could be, it is copyrighted music. It's my classical music collection that's going to start playing there. So the DM music. So now let me launch DM music, and now it lists my playlist. I could go click on something, hit enter, and it'll start playing because it's going to run the MPC toggle command on that particular file. So that's pretty cool, but the problem with the script here is the way he wrote it does not follow the template of all the other scripts. Now I went back later and I made sure that, we're sourcing all the helper files and config files and all of that, but the way he did this, he didn't have one main function. He had essentially three main functions. He had play, queue playlist, and current playlist. And it's not like one of them sources the other functions, right? They're actually three different functions, essentially, that he would later have as switches here in these arguments, the get ops here, the while get ops. So these are going to be the flags, and each of these flags will do these different 3 main functions that he had. Well, the problem with that is that breaks my ability to then use the D, F, and R flags for dmenu, fuzzy finder, and Rofi, because he has the 3 main functions here, and he has the menu variable here, which has not been set yet. I would have to set it in the flags here in the case statement, but I can't do that. What I need to do is I need to actually not have 3 separate functions for all of this. I need 1 main function, and then at the very top menu, I need play, queue playlist, current playlist for you to select it, and then from there select that, and then the D, F, and R flags should work as expected. So what I'm going to do is, he's already written these functions, which is fine. I'm just going to create a new function, I think, called main. So let's make this full screen. I'll zoom in. So let's just do main and really, this is actually going to be really simple. I don't have to do much in this main function. Let's create an array. So declare -a, this will be choices. I could name it anything, but let's just go with that. Choices. Play, because that was one of his functions, right? So we'll label it as play. Toggle, which would just be the MPC toggle command, and then something for his current playlist function, and then something for his queue playlist function. So that's that array, and then all I need to do is have that array piped into dmenu. So I'll create a new variable. This one will be choice without the S. So basically you're making your selection. I probably could just name it selection to make it clearer. I'll just do choice because that's what I typically use in these scripts. So for consistency's sake, print F, and then %SN, but that was need to be a backslash. So what we're going to do here, print F, some value followed by a new line, choices, yeah, I think that may be all I need to do there. And pipe that into dmenu, which dmenu, the command for dmenu or Rofi or FZF, is this variable here, menu. And then we need to give it a prompt name. We'll call it music player. I think that's what the original author was calling it, the prompt in his play function. And I think that would work. So print, let me just verify I didn't do any kind of weird mistakes, spelling mistakes, or punctuation. Printf looks good. From the choices array, pipe it into dmenu, give it the prompt name. Yeah. I think that is pretty standard there. Now we probably could give it a exit code, so run this command or exit, just in case something fails. And then from that, really all I would have to do, we need a case statement, right? What to do when somebody clicks on play, toggle, current playlist, queue playlist from the D menu. I think the easiest way to do that would be case choice in, and then you'd have to play as an option, Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and add the options. Make sure I spell them right. Toggle. They need to be spelled exactly as they were in the array. So current, and this is very important, the space. You have to escape it. Current playlist. And then Q playlist. And if it's not spelled correctly, it definitely will not work. So double check, make sure they are spelled correctly. So those are the case switches there. So let's have this one just run the command play, the function play, because he already had that defined. No reason to change his code or rewrite it. We'll just reuse everything he had. Same thing with current playlist. He had the function current playlist. Same thing with Q playlist. He already had his own function for it. So really, looked like it was going to be a major rewrite, but I think this will be pretty easy. Toggle is just MPC toggle, the command I ran from the terminal earlier, right? With case statements, it's really a good idea to always have this wildcard at the end. So if the case choice is anything other than these four, you never know what could happen, right? You never know what could happen. You have to give it some kind of a base statement, like what to do if it's not any of these choices. Well, you should just exit the program, right? All right. Now, one thing I did notice here, get this little red squiggly line here in Emacs, that's telling me something not quite right. Why is that not quite right? Because I know, I have the beginning probably just warning me I haven't used that main function. This syntax unexpected token. I didn't end the case statement. Bash. How do you use end a case statement? ESAC. Yeah. Kind of like how you end an if statement in Bash. FI, the reverse of if, same thing. Case, end it with the reverse of case. ESAC. All right, so Emacs saved me there, right? Because I would have missed that had I not seen that red squiggly line. And then the only thing I need to do here, well, instead of his play function, this just needs to be main, because from the main menu we can choose you know, play or queue list or playlist or whatever he had, which means we no longer need his original switches here. We can get rid of them. And then at the very end he was using play as his main function. Now this should be our main function, so all the instances of play for that function are now main. And now this should work with our DFR flags as well for dmenu, rofi, and fuzzy finder. What are the odds of that working? Let's find out. Space TV here in my Emacs config. If I can type, toggles vterm on. I'm already in this directory. So let's run. So let's run that script, dm music. We're not in the scripts directory. There we go. Now dm music. It's giving us an error because of some flags, some dmenu flags, because this is dmenu complaining. So we're gonna have to figure out what that error might be. Oh, what doesn't it like? I don't know. Could I run the script with rofi? Works with rofi. Could I run it with a -F for fuzzy finder? Unknown option, the at symbol here. You know what? I wonder. I'm just taking a wild guess here. I wonder if I just added that there. Get back into insert mode here. Let's run that with dmenu again. Yeah, still an error. Oh no, I missed something here. This should work. I'm going to think on it for a second, but let me get back to the chat. I know I spent a lot of time editing that file. Let's see. If the correct way doesn't work, why not use the way that works? As far as the login CTL command, yeah. I was doing it with, I think I was killing the processes of your user. I think I was doing a p kill or something. No, I think I actually had a case statement for various desktop environments and window managers. And if it found any of those processes running, it would kill them. So I had like an array of 15 different desktop environments or window managers, and basically said, hey, if any of these processes are running, kill them. And that worked. It's kind of a hacky solution. I guess there's probably several different ways you could kill a window manager. And again, yeah, does it matter what you use as long as it works? To me, no. But again, I'm not a professional programmer. For some people, it matters because this is what they do for a living, so they like doing things the correct way, right? The standard way, certainly the way that's more performant, because some commands do take a little longer to run than others, which doesn't matter on simple stuff. The stuff we're doing here doesn't matter. But if you're doing something more complicated, that starts to matter. Let's see. Yeah, hey DT, I'm new to contributions to open source. Any suggestions? Yeah, if you're just wanting to contribute to a project, I would open an issue on their GitHub or their GitLab and let them know you're interested in helping them. Before you make that first merge request, if you've never done it before, or if you're not sure about the project, how open they'll be to you changing things, contributing things. Yeah, open an issue first and actually let them know what you're thinking. They'll usually tell you exactly what you need to do. So start there. Thanks DT for the most comprehensive Linux guide on YouTube. Been using Linux for about a year now and currently editing my awesome window manager config, changing from i3 to awesome window manager. Very cool. Yeah, awesome is awesome. I need to spend more time on awesome too. One day when I get the urge to window manager hop again. Let's see if I can spot the error here. Because this is going to be simple. Whatever I did for the error here, it's going to be something so minor when I spot it. Well, get ops, and then I have all these flags that are listed here, except I deleted T, P, and Q. They're no longer there. Let's get rid of that because that's definitely part of the problem. So space TV, toggle vterm back on here. DM music, still getting the flag error for dmenu. So dmenu does not like something. So let's go back to our main function. Yeah, I have no idea on this. I cannot spot this. How about you guys? You spot anything obvious in this main function? I'm assuming this would be where something went wonky, but I don't see anything. Let's see. Francisco, hi, I'm a new subscriber. I would like to learn Linux and programming, but I don't have any knowledge. What do you recommend? I am old. Age doesn't matter. Get a lot of people that are much older than me. I'm in, my 40s. Yeah. So, I know people that, in their 70s and 80s that first learned Linux, right? Age doesn't matter. As far as learning Linux and programming, what do I recommend? It depends on the kind of learner you are. Some people are more visual learners, so videos. Some people like to read. If you like to read, obviously there's a lot of good books about. I would get some basic books such as like the Command Line Bible, which covers basically your bash shell and all the standard GNU core utils. Once you know that, then scripting like we're doing here, I mean, this is really just interacting with basically the bash shell and the GNU core utils, everything we're doing here for the most part. Also read the Arch Wiki, regardless of what Linux distribution you use. Anytime something piques your curiosity a little bit, read the Arch Wiki. Let's see. Doesn't it need 2 equals at the end? No opt equal 1. I don't know, because this script was working fine. I didn't change this line. The only thing I changed was originally it had the play function. I used the main function here. But I wonder if in the rest of the scripts, no, they all use no opt equals 1. I know that script was working, so. Yeah, so it's just running, that test. Does it equal 1? If it does, menu equals dmenu. Basically, what this does is if I don't give it dfr for dmenu, fuzzy finder, or rofi, then set the menu variable by default to dmenu. And dmenu is a hard dependency for the dmscripts, even if you don't plan on using it, just because it will always fall back or default to dmenu if you don't specify one of the other 2 programs for it. I don't know why. There's something obvious I'm missing here. I say it's something obvious I'm missing here. No. I may have to figure this one out off camera. I've got a good clue. I mean, one of the things about error messages on Linux is they're usually pretty good about telling you what the problem is. The problem is when you're trying to run this script using dmenu, it doesn't like the flags that are being given. But I don't give it any flags in this script. Right? Well, I say I don't, but maybe he did in these functions up here. I didn't think about that. No. All of his look correct. He's got the menu variable and then the label or the prompt, right? By default, Dmenu and Rofi have the -p flag set in the global config, so it will accept a prompt if you give it. The prompt should come right after. That's not a problem. I don't know. That might have to be a problem I solve off camera, because otherwise we're just going to sit here and look at me staring all day. It's going to be a really simple fix, because I'm quite certain that I was on the right track how to fix all that as far as make the script work. Just somewhere along the way I missed something, because it does work. I haven't actually proven that it works with Rofi, but it does work. If I go back into this, let's run it with Rofi, because it doesn't complain with Rofi about any weird flags or anything. So if I actually hit play, I get my list. If I hit enter, it's going to start playing. If I rerun that with Rofi, let's toggle that back off. Let's try Fuzzy Finder. I don't know if it'll run with Fuzzy Finder. Yeah, it won't. But not all the scripts are going to work with Fuzzy Finder. I could probably make it work with Fuzzy Finder, but that's not a priority. Making it work with Dmenu, though, is kind of a priority, because originally, I mean, all of this stuff was designed to be used with Dmenu. So, since it works with Rofi, it's got to be something where I set Dmenu as the value for the menu variable. So either there or the default or the fallback option here. But there's nothing wrong with that I can see. I'll work it out off camera. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half. I'm just going to stream another 5 minutes or so. So you guys, let's interact with the chat before we go. You got any questions or comments? Yep. Forgot a $sign, didn't I? Let's see. Music player. You know what? And I sat here and I said about 15 different times that line has got to be the problem. And I could not see that. You know, sometimes you just need another pair of eyes. That absolutely is the problem. So space TV, and now let me get into insert mode, and now it works. Works with Dmenu. If I want to go ahead and hit play. Yep, that works. Let me up arrow, toggle that back off. All right, so we fixed that script, or at least we've made it a lot better than what it was, because now it actually works, at least with the Dmenu and Rofi flags. The F flag is still an issue. No, it's not. That fixed that one too. So that is actually well, vterm is giving me some problems. Vterm apparently doesn't like my Fuzzy Finder scripts. I did not know that. I may have to experiment more with that. That's it, guys. I think that's what all I'm going to do on that. Let's go ahead and cd into my dmscripts repo here. Clear. Do a git status. Let's see what we've changed. We changed the global config, dm logout to where hopefully it now works. DM music. I say that's a pretty good day. So let's go ahead and do a git add -u for, you know, anything that's been modified or updated, right? We'll git commit -m for message. Fixed dm logout for xmonad qtile fix DM music for Rofi FZF. Let's push that. And I'm not going to bother rebuilding the dmscripts binary and the packages just yet, because chances are I'm going to make some more changes. So before actually rebuilding everything, I'll take a look at some of these other dmscripts here over the next few days, and then I'll probably push out another major update or something, in the next week or two. But those two scripts, I'm glad I got those working, which the dm logout script had been working forever. It's just that recent commit caused some minor issues. But that dm music script, and I like that music script, having the ability to play music using MPD and MPC right there from Dmenu or Rofi. Problem is, the way it was written, it just did not work with the dmscripts template, the format that the rest of us had been working. Because there's like 30 scripts now as part of the dmscripts, and we've gotten a lot of people have contributed. Probably half the scripts were originally written by me, started by me, but then other people contribute, change things, work on things. I don't know how many contributors we've had, but it wouldn't shock me if we haven't had 30 people or so that have had their hands on some of these scripts. And of course, naturally, when you get a lot of people working on something, sometimes issues crop up. All right, so about an hour and a half in, I said I was gonna quit the stream here, but you know what? Let's go another 10 minutes or so. Let's get any questions and comments. Let's do a quick Q&A session. We've done enough with my GitLab issues and doing some basic fixing of some bash scripts. Yeah, I think you need to update the DM music help to remove old args. Did I not do that as well? But you see, here's the trick with the help, because originally the help was going to be every script had its own help function within each individual script. And that worked, but what I ended up doing was I added a global help function in the global config. If I go to the bottom, I thought I had a help function. Let me just do help. Is help not here? Well, no, he has his help function actually as part of the script. You're right. If he didn't, there is a global help function that there's a global help screen that automatically gets generated. It just automatically displays these 4 standard flags that is used for all the DM scripts, but he also added -q and the -p flag, which we're no longer going to use. He also added some helpful information about how to use MPC. I'm going to leave that. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll leave that. DM helper, by the way, that file that gets sourced, I believe, is the one where I have the global help flag somewhere, probably toward the bottom. Here it is. Now git menu program. Help. So basically, any DM script that doesn't have a help function specifically written for it will use this standard one. And the reason this works is because, again, we have description and dependencies already listed and all. That's required for each individual script. So if I did a help on DM logout or DM man for the DM man page program. You know, I'll actually get the name, the base name of the program, so dm-man, for example, and then it'll spit out the description and dependencies that it greps from the individual script itself, and then it just has this basic text. You know, H displays the help, D runs the script using Dmenu, F fuzzy finder, R Rofi, and then I'll also specify running DM man or DM logout, whatever the base name happens to be, without any arguments, always defaults to Dmenu. Run man on dmscripts for more information. There's a man page for dmscripts, for which I could actually show that as well. Man dmscripts without the extension. And you get basically just a very brief description of what each of the scripts do. And some information about the global config and the local config. And some information about the how to edit the config, edit the arrays and the config. But now that we made that change, let me make sure that change is there. All right, so cd back into dmscripts. So now we have changed DM music again. So get add-u get commit. But you know what? This commit message, change that to, what did we do? Removed old help flags from the help function. Yeah, I think that works for a commit message. All right, now we're officially done for the day. Took me a little while to fix that script, right? But honestly, I thought it was going to be more of a hassle than it was. Really, that wouldn't have been a hassle at all had I not forgot that $sign, right? Like, it's just one, you know, that's the thing with programming that can be frustrating. And I knew the line in that script that was giving me a problem. I just couldn't see it. I thought it was going to be punctuation as far as closing and opening parentheses. So I checked that. Then I thought maybe it's the quotes, single quotes, double quotes. And I looked at that. And I was like, no, that's not right. I never thought about the $sign. Let's see. What's the easiest window manager you would recommend to a Linux user who wants to try out a window manager? If you're talking about tiling window managers, for an easy one to try out, I would probably try out Awesome Window Manager. Just because it actually works out of the box. Even if you don't configure it, you kind of have a window manager. It has a bar, it has a menu, and by default, it has floating windows with a title bar and everything. Like, it looks like a normal floating window manager by default. You actually have to go in there and configure it to actually be a tiling window manager, which is what it's designed for. But, you know, they don't want to scare the children, right? They don't want to be a tiling window manager out of the box that you have to immediately configure. So they give you something that anybody can use. And then you get in there and then you kind of work on the config. It's configured in Lua. Not everybody knows Lua. Not everybody's a fan of Lua. That's pretty easy though. Qtile is another one that's pretty easy to get into because it works out of the box. It's got a panel out of the box. It's written in Python. Python's pretty easy to figure out. Let's see. Hey DT, I'm your new subscriber. Can you recommend one best minimal browser? What you think about Qt Browser? Qt Browser's fantastic. The only reason I don't use Qt Browser, I have it installed, but you guys never see me use Qt Browser is because it doesn't have a good ad block. And when I'm recording, I can't have ads playing. For one thing, it just makes bad videos if I'm trying to read or show you guys a web page and a big pop-up ad comes up, or even worse though, multimedia ads, like if it played music or, you know, video, things like that. That could be copyrighted, could get me flagged, you know, from the algorithms. I just can't have that. So Qt Browser would be the browser I would use all the time if I wasn't making videos all the time. So yes, I love Qt Browser. And I do use it quite a bit off camera, but when I'm on camera, my default key bindings are all set to Brave, just because the Brave ad block is really good, and that's what I need when I'm recording. If you're looking for a browser with built-in Vim-like key bindings, which I'm assuming that's kind of what you mean with a minimal browser, Qt Browser is by far the best. i3 is the best to start with for a minimal, for a beginner tiling window manager. It's okay. I mean, it's not hard to config. Yeah, i3 is okay. Thing is, it's a little more minimal out of the box than something like Awesome. You know, that's why I recommend Awesome, is because it's already got a menu, which is something very few window managers actually have built into it, a menu system. It's got like a open box menu, or a right-click menu system. You just right-click on the desktop and you get all your desktop applications listed in a menu. That's kind of neat. The other thing with Awesome is you get all the keyboard shortcuts. You tap the super key and you get a list of all your keyboard shortcuts, which is a super cool feature that I think every window manager should actually copy from the Awesome Window Manager guys, because then nobody ever has to remember what their key binding is, or if they can't remember, let me go look through my lengthy config to find where the key binding is set. No, Awesome, it automatically generates this list of key bindings that it pulls from your config, so it's always up to date, right? So Awesome Window Manager is almost self-documenting, kind of like Emacs, right? You go change the config and, it makes those changes right away in the list of key bindings. Really cool. Yeah, more people. Yeah, a lot of you guys spotted the lacking $sign. Yeah, $sign, then the @ symbol. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised you guys did finally notice it, but it took you guys a long time to notice it. I expected somebody to spot that a little quicker. Of course, I can't say anything. I didn't spot it either. Let's see. Talking about JavaScripting and sandboxing, Big Pod? Are you kidding? Big Pod, when did you turn into a JavaScripter? I thought that was your least favorite language. I'm pretty sure JavaScript is not Big Pod's favorite. That's strange he's talking about it. Yeah, Zorkman says, day trading channel. Yeah, I could do some trading videos. It wouldn't be your typical day trading kind of videos, though, because a lot of the crap you see on YouTube is worthless. A lot of that stuff, I would say 90% of people that trade don't make any money, actively trade. Now, if you're a long-term investing, you just put some money away and come back to it in 30 or 40 years, yeah, you probably make a little money. But who wants to do that? For one thing, that money you make is not going to be life-changing kind of money, right? If you're just investing in a index fund and accepting the fact that you're going to get about 8% on it every year, well, that's nice. In 20 years, yeah, it'll increase. Inflation will have also increased. And, was it worth it? No. So a lot of people try to actually beat the market, make more than just putting your money in an index fund and mutual funds or whatever and just sitting on it. And to actively trade the market and actually beat the market, that's hard. I would say easily 90% of traders don't do that. I would actually venture it's probably closer to like 98, 99% of traders can't do that. But you have a lot of people on YouTube, like that's a huge popular topic on YouTube, trading. And some of those guys have absolutely no idea what they're doing, what they're talking about. Sometimes they give just horrendously bad advice that could be actually seriously damaging to bank accounts. Yeah. So I would caution, if you're interested in that kind of content, be careful. It's pretty easy to spot the ones that either they just don't know what they're doing, so they're kind of incompetent, but it's more than incompetence. A lot of them are just scammers. They're typically out there trying to sell something. Be careful with it. And anybody that tries to sell you something and tells you it's going to make you a better trader or it's going to magically help you pick the right trades, they're lying. 100%, it's always a scam. There's no magic formula. There's no magic tool. So avoid those people. As soon as they even mention something like that, just quit watching that person. Right? Just run far away from that kind of content. So yeah, if I ever made any kind of trading kind of videos, trading content, maybe a separate trading channel, I think it would be enlightening, because it would definitely, yeah, I would bring something different than what most people bring to those kinds of videos. All right, any last thoughts here before I go? Give it a couple more minutes. Yeah, you did the same. You used i3 Window Manager as your first tiling window manager. Yeah, a lot of people started with i3. i3 was a very popular window manager, I would say about 7 or 8 years ago. I remember i3 being like everybody's window. Everybody used i3, it seemed. I hated it because it wasn't a dynamic tiler. I like dynamic tiling window managers, but I always found it odd. Why is everybody using i3? Because it's nothing special in my book. I try it all the time. I keep configs. I go back to it every now and then. It's nothing special in comparison with so many other tiling window managers. For example, BSPWM, I like a lot better. And BSPWM and i3 are kind of comparable, and it's kind of how they function. But I find BSPWM to be much better manual tiler if that's the way you want to go. Or Herbs Luft, it's not bad. But you know, these things change. i3 was everybody's favorite window manager again, like 7, 8 years ago. And then I would say a couple years after that, all of a sudden it switched. Then everybody and their mother was using BSPWM all of a sudden. Like, again, the Linux community, the free and open source community, even though we're all kind of nonconformists, we're all rebels, we all like to say we do this our own thing, go our own separate way. There is a lot of groupthink. Well, everybody that was using i3 then immediately switched to BSPWM because it was the best window manager. And then all of a sudden you started seeing a change. Now people wanted to get into some of the dynamic tilers because, you know, once you, honestly, if you're used to using the manual tilers like i3 and BSPWM, you're probably going to like the dynamic tilers better. So when people try things like DWM, Qtile, Xmonad, awesome, they're like, oh, well, this is really cool. And then all of a sudden you saw, especially a lot of people using DWM is an interesting one because DWM's been around forever and nobody likes having to compile it, to patch it. Nobody, right? Nobody likes it. And it never was popular. I mean, people used it, but it was never, ever a popular window manager until about, I'd say in the last 4 or 5 years. Then you start to see a lot of people on YouTube using it, a lot of people on Unix porn using it. And things change, right? But what's weird is DWM itself has never changed. It's still the same window manager it was 15 years ago. So what changed? Nothing. Just the user sentiment, just the general opinion out there. You know, it changes. People are fickle, right? Yeah, you're still on DWM, but you got tired of patching. Yeah, that's the only thing I hate about it is the patching. Now, I don't make major changes all the time, so it's not that big of a deal, but it shouldn't be that clunky to configure a window manager. And the fact that that is a barrier to entry for new users, I think is a shame. Because I think DWM would be a very popular window manager if you didn't have to build it from source and patch it. Because let's be fair, newer users, they're not going to do that. They're not going to be prepared to do that. They're not going to be prepared to go to the command line, run the patch command, and when the patch fails, well, let me go read the diff and find the lines that, for whatever reason, need to be edited and, you know, get all of that merged back in correctly and, you know, recompile. New users are never going to do that. So I think that's a kind of an unfair barrier to entry. It's a little unfair to the new users. I know the suckless guys, they want to be elite, but in some cases, I think they're being elite just for the sake of being elite, right? Hey DT, do you mind if you put some music in the background? If I actually want to keep this stream up, I would have to make sure that it was Creative Commons music. I'd actually have to go search for something. I'm not going to, because we're going to kill the stream in just another couple of minutes here. Let's see. Ben Fitzpatrick, I don't like Hyperland, especially given your laptop has an RTX 2060. Well, that's a, you know, NVIDIA and Wayland. We'll get there. You know, another couple of years, it'll get a lot better. Another 3 or 4 years, I would say it's probably going to be a non-issue. But we'll see. I mean, who knows? But things have certainly sped up in Wayland development here in the last couple of years, because you got to remember, Wayland development started in like 2009. And for the first 12 years of its existence, Wayland literally was unusable. Nobody used it. You know, you couldn't practically. The only people that were even trying to use it were the people developing Wayland. So you got to understand how long it's taken just to get to this point. But now it seems like it's getting to the point where it's getting there. And a lot of that has to do with GNOME. Because GNOME is such a popular desktop environment, and it's defaulting to Wayland now. And GNOME has gotten Wayland quite usable, actually, if you're willing to use GNOME. The problem is, do you want to use GNOME? You know, that's the thing with me. If my choices were I could either use Wayland, but I had to use GNOME, or I could use 100 other desktop environments or window managers, but I'd be stuck on Xorg, then I'd always be on Xorg. I'm not going to use GNOME, right? I don't want to use GNOME. Because what's more important, the display server or the desktop environment or window manager? Well, I would say most computer users are going to say the desktop environment, the UI, right? They don't even know what the hell the display server is, right? The display server is kind of like out of sight, out of mind. But that UI, that's the important thing. So we've got to get more desktop environments and window managers working with Wayland. Right? We got to have more choice on Wayland. Right now, there's no choice, really. KDE's kind of there. KDE's getting close. But I don't want to use GNOME. That's the problem right now. Like people, hey, why don't you just switch to Wayland full-time on all your machines? Well, especially with my NVIDIA card on my home computer, and what are my options? The only real option probably would be GNOME on that machine, and I'm not going to do that. Yeah, Ben, you don't want to use GNOME yourself? Well, I know you're an XFCE guy, so, which I like XFCE too. Yeah, Milo says, rest in peace, Bram Molinar. Did he pass? Yeah, the Vim creator and dictator for life. I guess that just happened. Wow, yeah, that's big news. Well, that is unfortunate. Because obviously that's such a, Vim is such a big program as far as influential program. And he was such, obviously, an integral part of Vim. Like, he really was like the dictator. Like, he directed everything, every bit of development for Vim. So that will be interesting, seeing how Vim develops going forward. Of course, you know, it won't affect all the forks, because there's a million forks of Vim. The most popular one obviously being NeoVim, which is kind of slowly started replacing standard Vim. Probably because of this news, it wouldn't shock me if now NeoVim really started to become more of the standard Vim that gets installed on our Unix-like operating systems. Yeah, KDE on Wayland is really nice these days. That's from Dotfiles. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, KDE in general is not nice because of how buggy it is. I've experienced some bugginess with KDE. I can feel your pain on that. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and try to keep this stream under 2 hours. Maybe it'll get synced to Odyssey. Maybe it won't. I'm not sure. Odyssey has trouble syncing some of these larger videos these days. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. For those of you that didn't catch the earlier part of the stream, we did some cleaning up on my GitLab, some of the repos on the GitLab, fixed some issues, responded to some issues. I merged some merge requests, and we also did some small little changes to some configuration files. We did some bash scripting, trying to correct some errors that were existing in some of the programs that I have over on my GitLab. So if you guys are interested in that, go back and check out the beginning of this video. So before I go, I do want to thank each and every one of you guys in the YouTube chat for hanging out. You guys were awesome. Your questions, your comments, and you guys spotted errors in my scripting that I did not spot, so I appreciate that. And of course, I also need to thank all of the patrons. So I want to thank all these guys that you're seeing on the screen, all these names. Each and every one of these, ladies and gentlemen, help make what I do possible. And other than that, peace, guys.